President Trump announced on social media yesterday that the U.S. has targeted the ISIS terror group with missile strikes in northwest Nigeria. Trump wrote that the terrorists have been viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years. The Department of War posted a video on social media showing the missile launch from a military vessel. The U.S. military's Africa Command said the strike was carried out at the request of Nigerian authorities. In a statement, Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it will continue to cooperate with partners like the U.S. in addressing the threat of terrorism. In a post on X, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth thanked the Nigerian government for its support and cooperation and added, quote, "more to come." And in Turkey, the Istanbul police detained 115 suspected ISIS members yesterday. The chief prosecutor's office said they were planning to carry out attacks on Christmas and New Year celebrations in the country. Police seized firearms, ammunition, and organizational documents following 124 raids across Istanbul. This follows a deadly New Year's attack that ISIS carried out 8 years ago at Istanbul's Reyna nightclub. President Trump announced a powerful and deadly strike targeting the ISIS terrorist group in northwest Nigeria yesterday. Joining us to discuss is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum Center for American Safety and Security. So Taylor, good afternoon to you. Hope you had a good Christmas holiday. So I want to ask you about this situation. The U.S. and the Nigerian government working together in this operation, and a Pentagon spokesperson told the Epoch Times that the Nigerian government approved the strikes. And as well, President Trump, right, he said previously he had warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be consequences. So what is your reaction to these strikes?
Well, Secretary Hegseth said it best when he said that this is not the beginning of war. It is a declaration of vengeance. And I think that that shows a lot about where the United States military and diplomatic posture is at this point. You know, we had 2 service members plus an interpreter and a civilian that were killed by ISIS about a week ago now, whose families are now spending Christmas alone and without them because of Islamic extremism throughout the world. And I think that this just puts those extremists on notice that regardless of what continent they're on, that if you threaten American citizens and their lives and people with our shared values, that we will come for you, regardless of whether it's Christmas or not.
How much do you think does this change the landscape in terms of making Nigeria a safer place for Christians?
There are 220 million people in Nigeria, very large population of both Christian and Muslims whose threats or whose lives are at threat every day because of the Fulani militias there, as well as ISIS and other Islamic State terrorist actors. And so I really think whether or not it becomes a safer place for Christians and Muslims as a whole is up to the Nigerian leadership and the government. The president there has said that targeting groups of any religion of any kind is not conducive with their culture and their values as the country of Nigeria. But I really believe that it's up to the Nigerian leadership, not the United States, to decide whether this is going to be a safer place for Christians and Muslims alike.
All right, but through this action and the moral framing of the strike, you know, as an effort to counter violence against Christians, what would you say it tells us about some of the priorities of this administration?
I believe this is twofold. I've had this conversation with several people, and yes, the president has been clear that ISIS and any other Islamic State actors that are targeting Christian groups in Nigeria will be sought after and hunted down. But I think that this is a little bit deeper than that for the administration. I really think that this is about rooting out the rot of Islamic extremism throughout the world, and the fact that ISIS is involved in Nigeria gives the United States an opportunity to let these terrorists know that we can come after them wherever they are. I believe that this is a really good messaging point for the administration, for evangelical voters in the Republican Party and throughout the United States. And so I believe that the Trump administration is using this as a means to show that They are supportive of Christians throughout the world and supportive of cultures who share our democratic values. But I think that we as people that study foreign policy need to look at this a little bit deeper about what the root cause of this is. We don't target people who target Christians throughout the world. We're look at Myanmar. We're not looking at places like that and target and going to go save those Christians. So I think that we really need to look at what the deeper cause of this is, and it really is about Islamic extremism throughout the world and the thousands of deaths that ISIS and other Islamic groups have caused against Americans and against those who share our values throughout the world.
How prevalent is radical Islam in Africa?
It's very prevalent. Over 55% of the deaths that are happening in Nigeria are actually happening from the Fulani militias, which are primarily radical extremists. And so it's happening a lot. And whether I can say, I don't know the data to tell you whether or not they're only targeting Christians. I think that you can see anecdotal stories everywhere that they're targeting Muslims too. So I think this is a deeper rod about extremism taking over and not just necessarily about one religion or another. And so I think we need to be really careful when we're analyzing policy issues like this, looking at the root cause of these issues. I fully support the strikes that happened, that the administration carried out. I think it's a great thing for Nigerians, and I think it's a great thing for us and anyone who's battling against ISIS and Islamic terror groups to let them know that we're still watching them and that we can come and get them on any area of the world. But I would be careful to caution people to think that this is just the United States protecting Christians around the world, because it is much, much deeper than that.
And Taylor, as well, can I ask you, in your view, how much of a deterrence effect could this have against other groups committing similar actions in the continent?
My hope would be that it has a strong deterrence effect, that when they see that the president of the United States is unpredictable. And so when the leader of the United States is unpredictable and feared to her enemies, that they will second guess and think twice about whether or not they commit acts of terror. If it's easy to cross our border, if it's easy to commit acts of terror, if it's easy to conduct these networks around the world, then it's going to be easy for them to carry out these strikes. The New York Times actually did a really interesting article about where all of the ISIS attacks happened throughout the world and the prevalence of them. And I strongly encourage people to go look at that and Google it, because it's not just happening, in Europe or in America. It's happening all over the Middle East. And there are so many people, Muslims too, who are dramatically affected by the rise of Islamic extremism. And it's something that needs to be rooted out. The world, any kind of extremism, especially extremism that leads to violence, is something that people who respect the rule of law, who value democratic values, it's not something that we can have congruent with our society and with the modern world. So I think that this is really important, that we all step back and look at, this is not just Americans being targeted. It's truly not just Christians being targeted. I'm a strong person of faith myself, but this is a cancer that needs to be rooted out throughout the world, and it's happening everywhere.
Okay, Taylor, just one final question. And I want to ask you how you think about this strike and how the U.S. will be viewed on the global stage by both allies and adversaries.
I think that you're going to have people who are all over the board about this. President Trump has been very clear that he campaigned against being someone who's the president of peace, who leads through strength. And I think the far left is going to use this as an opportunity to say, but he's bombing people. How can you bomb people if you're a president of peace? But the president is leading through strength. And sometimes that means making hard decisions that those of us who are in the room when the decisions are happening don't always understand. But there is a big, big global network of very, very bad things that happen around the world that Americans in particular are not knowledgeable of and aware of, because we live in this very egocentric, ethnocentric borders of our country, and we think that it can't get us here. But I think that you have seen throughout history, look at 9/11, look at Pearl Harbor, it can come and get you here. And so the president is doing the president's job in making sure Americans Americans are safe and secure. And so I would hope that this leads to a response from our adversaries that we haven't let our foot off the gas like we had the last 4 years in the prior administration, where they really let, the rule of law kind of be thrown out the window. When you allow anywhere between 12 and 20 million unvetted people to come in through this country and risk the sanctity and security of American citizens and our way of life because you have no idea who is coming in this country, you can't tell me that our adversaries did not utilize those horrendous policies to bring people into the United States to seek to do us harm. So I think we need to be thinking about this on a broader scale. Yes, this is happening in Africa, but the ideology and the extremism that is leading these people to commit these acts of terror in Nigeria can easily and has easily filtered throughout the rest of the world. And it is the president's job to make sure that that is rooted out and stays very far away from the United States. And he and the administration are doing just that.
Okay, well, Taylor, great comments from you as always. And I think we won't see you again until 2026. So let me wish you Happy New Year. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
The FBI is investigating the theft of a major lobster shipment bound for locations in Illinois and Minnesota. It's reportedly worth $400,000. So find out more about this after the break.